After kind of going through that rant about parental burnout and the good stress and bad stress, sometimes when you have some bad stress in life, they need a role model. They need to see, how do you deal with this stress? And sometimes we don't deal with it in the best case possible. I mean, we can only do as good as we know. So when you know that maybe perhaps you're not moving through whatever's stressing you out in the best possible way, it's up to you to be aware of what's happening. What is this stress about? What is it taking over? Where do you feel the stress? Where did it come from? And how long has it been there? And how many instances do you see them? So that means, is it multiple things that create the stress? Is it just usually one thing? Or is there a compounding situation of stressful things that are occurring in your life, which is causing this chronic stress, which eventually will lead to burnout? Because that's what burnout is chronic stressors. So for parents, perhaps they're feeling stressed from their children's behavior, maybe their actions, perhaps things within their school setting, friends, extended outside groups of people, maybe sport events that they're, doing some extracurricular activities or whatnot. So there's a lot of stress that they're taking on because as a parent, aside from your own stressors, which could be your work, getting groceries, setting up your week, being the scheduler for everything, all those different things. And then also about your own self, taking care of yourself. What do you need to survive and feel good about yourself? So there's all these stressors that you're dealing with, but then you're dealing with another little human stress that they look up to you and they are looking for the answers. So you're dealing with the stress from all that. Although they don't show the stress because they're relying on you, you're taking on their stress. So how do you juggle it all? Because right now and after this last couple of years where I'm sure more parents have taken on more than they can handle, where they're homeschooling, where they're full-time caregivers, where they have to be a babysitter all the time because they don't have any external resources like school or daycare and such. So everything's been shut down, and now you're a teacher, you're a lunch supervisor, you're a caretaker, you're a caregiver, you're a chef, you're everything under the sun. And maybe you're spending so much time with your child that it's becoming so difficult to allow them as well to have that detachment. And there's these quiet worries that maybe people have about the social development of their children during this time and such. And as we all navigate it together differently, one thing that's common is that the children need to be the front of everybody's mind of how this will affect, because as outside of adults and how we can handle our own pressures and our own structures within our mind, it's their outcomes where they're not well equipped for this kind of stuff. They're looking, like I said, for that reassurance from our own selves that they're doing okay, that they'll be able to get through it just like us. So it's really working through some of the instabilities that are constantly occurring that can really help harness some better energy in the environment that we're constantly in. So for parents, because when they're feeling burnout, they just feel like they don't have the structural support to deal and overcome with the stress. They don't have the practical experience because some things are just so outside of what they're capable of doing. Yet they're juggling all of these different hats and they're trying to make all these different entities work together. This is truly going to be a perfect setup for mental, emotional, which results in physical burnout. And so when you keep compounding all the different stressors outside of what the person is already stressing about, there's all these different compounding effects. It can really lead to chronic stress, and it's relentless. This is just, it's not stopping. It's non-stopping, and it's just going to keep happening no matter how much effort you put in, how much structure you're trying to put. all these efforts that are coming from you can feel really relentless, where the stress will just consume you and take over you. So, what parental burnout really is trying to say to everybody is that they're doing way too much. Their expectations are through the roof, that they're juggling all these different components, and it's unreasonable. It's impractical. It's unheard of. And it really makes it hard for a parent to be that person that they want to be when they're having a really hard time feeling great energy to do all these things, because they never had to juggle all these things before. There were different things at one point, but within the last 2 years of things changing and constantly changing, they're faced with so many different things on the playing field now. So I can only feel and understand somewhat of the challenges you may be feeling, because anybody in burnout mode has these constant symptoms all the time. It's just, what are the factors that are creating this? And for burnout parents out there, they don't want to take out their anger. They don't want to take out their uh, irritants or annoyance or frustration out on their children, because they're the ones that are going to suffer from our own behaviors. So it's really about taking a step back and really look at, what risks are you experiencing right now, exerting right now in terms of burnout, and how is that affecting your day to day life? So, as I said, parents are more burnt out now than ever before. And even with things kind of moving in a different direction where homeschool is not as prevalent anymore, there's all these other underlying stressors that are still very present. So, it really takes parents some time to learn how to cope through things constantly changing. And this is hard for some parents, because they beat themselves up that they don't always have the answer, that perhaps they're not doing the best job right now because they don't know how to navigate it themselves. And there's a lot of new things that we need to navigate through. But I mean, if you don't know and you don't try, you never know. And so life is constantly about making mistakes. And if we allow our child to see that mistakes are possible, mistakes are okay. It's okay to make a mistake. No parent is perfect. Let's be straight up honest about that. Not a parent, not a person, not a human being is perfect at all in their existence. So, what makes it think that you're not going to show some of those challenges that you're facing, some once in a blue moon negativity that you're feeling? Like, these things are real things. So it's really necessary to show that there are some things that do occur, but kind of coping strategies are available. What is out there that we can use as a parent to deal with on a short term basis, and then a long term basis to bring it full fledged, like something that we're starting to learn and harness and be a part of how we deal with stress? So, a lot of parents feel depleted since this stuff started happening, way beyond this stuff, but now more so when the last 2 years have taken a huge toll on parents, and they rely on so many resources out there. And so when they all shut down and when they're all not available, it can send a parent into frenzy, because they're constantly thinking far in the future, because they're planning all the time of their own outcomes, of their child's outcomes. So there's a lot at play here, lots of moving parts. And how, as humans, how, as people, can we deal with these constant moving parts? And this is something that a lot of people should be thinking about as things progressively change around us and we see the change happening. How can we work at allowing this change to be something we can organically feel confident about working with, or perhaps not working with, and what are some alternatives for us? And so this is something that we need to set ourselves up in a very healthy environment, and healthy looks different for everyone, but what kind of healthy environment are you creating for yourself to deal with these constant moving parts? And for parents, especially because they have their own lives as well as their child's lives to worry about, this constant state of how things are constantly changing can really make them go through the roof and feel like just exhausted. And that's the number one actual feeling that a lot of parents have, is complete exhaustion because they're defeated. They don't know how to do anything more to change the outcomes, to change the situation. So they're just really tired. And I totally can feel your pain. So it's really about coming 360, having a full conversation about this, making sure that people are aware that parents are suffering out there. And it's not easy being a parent. Sometimes I'm in complete, utter awe of people that have multiple children and just how well they keep it together. And those are the people that sometimes are quietly suffering inside. So don't allow yourself to have that experience as being a parent taken away because you don't know how to deal with things. This should be a joyous experience all around, with challenges always. And this is something that's reality, but it's how to enjoy parenthood and embrace it in the best loving way possible without negatively affecting yourself or having this experience where you feel like you failed somebody else, that you feel guilty for not meeting the expectations, that you feel like you're not enough and you're not giving enough and you're not loving enough, because you're the best person to do this job. No other parent could do the job that you're doing, unless, of course, you forfeited and given it up. And then that's a whole different ball game there. But you're the best person to do this. So bring your A game and don't allow this to take you out. And a lot of people are just quietly moving through this because they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what questions to ask. They feel shame, they feel hurt, they feel pain, and they feel judged by everybody else in society because they should know what to do. You're a parent. Come on. You should know this. You should know these things. Don't you know? But I mean, maybe you're the first parent. You're first parent, or maybe you're second parent. It doesn't matter. It's always new because every person that you create is a new unique individual. So how can anything ever be the same as the first child or the second or the third? Like, it's always going to be different. So as humans, I don't think we realize how flexible we are or how flexible we could be. And maybe if we were a little bit more flexible, then things would be a lot more easier and manageable. So what are the true signs of parental burnout? Outside of course, all the other things that burnout can affect average, normal, regular people who aren't parents. But what do parents deal with? The physical exhaustion, the mental, emotional exhaustion. They're just drained. They can't meet the needs because it's a constant demand upon them of everything that's needed around them. So they're being asked for more than what was normally clearly defined when life was relatively normal. They're experiencing higher demands of themselves, and a lot of it's very unclear demands. So it's a lot of guesswork, and parents should just look for signs if they're feeling fatigue, extreme irritability, lack of sleep, your appetite changes, maybe your mood is extremely affected, which that is usually one of the number one things to notice for, is your mood, because that's something that's all the time that you can notice change easily. So mood is a huge one. And then aches and pains throughout your body. Like, sometimes those individuals who have expressed chronic stress or are suppressing the stress, it starts showing up in your body. It shows up maybe in your jaw. The jaw is such a critical place to think about when you're holding stress. A lot of people clench it, And then a lot of people get a lot of pain and tiredness in their jaw, and a lot of cracking. TMJ is there and is being your jaw is being held hostage by it, and there's so many things to look for. So I always like to start in the upper body and do a body scan all the way down to see where else do I feel the aches and pains and tension, and really be aware of some of these things that parents could experience, which is a normal symptom of burnout, some of these things, and just notice how severe these symptoms are, how they show up, where they're showing up, how frequent, what triggers them, where it's coming from. So this kind of type of self-evaluating, self-awareness is something I consider a coping tool, because not everybody is aware that they have it, and not everybody uses it either, which I think is very interesting. A lot of people just shove it aside, like they sweep it under the rug, just hope it will just disappear, dissipate. They kind of just ignore it and carry on. They almost actually, some of them accept it as part of their lives and they're okay with that. And I just think that's really irresponsible as a person. If you want to maintain this vessel that we're in, and yes, I call this a vessel because I'm I'm the controller of this vessel. I'm the person that will be nurturing, nourishing, maintaining, and also I'm the person that beats it up. I'm the one that abuses it. I'm the one that does things to it. So this is mine. This vessel, this body that I'm in is mine, and my personality, my spirit, my mind is an expression of my inner self, and I'm allowed to use this vessel to express my outer self. So when you notice that a lot of your inner thoughts, that constant dialogue, that chatter, the things that are going in and out of your mind are very stressful, are really compounding, are getting harder and harder to deal with, are causing you to start expressing yourself in anxious tendencies. Maybe you're starting to have social anxiety. Maybe your anxiety flares up where then you start getting some physical sensations. Maybe it's a chronic headache. Maybe you're getting some irritable bowel syndrome where food's not processing itself and setting itself very well in your stomach. Maybe you're allergic or irritated by certain foods now. Really tuning in to the parts that you're feeling it in your body. So like I mentioned, your jaw, maybe it's your shoulders and neck, because a lot of people carry the world on their shoulders and they do feel that heaviness, the pain, where you can't even rotate your neck, you can't even turn your neck side to side. I've been there before, by the way. It's brutal. And noticing how the stress starts tensing up all of our muscles and moves into our joints. So joint flexibility. If you're noticing pain in certain areas, again, a lot of women hold a lot of their stress as well in their hips. So they start to feel a lot of pain there. And these are things to all be aware of. And doing this body scan can really help give you clarity on how your body's functioning daily, or technically not functioning daily very well, but how's it dealing with things. And you'll notice from the minute you wake up, if you bring this coping skill around with you and you use this as part of your judgment every day of how you're dealing with things, how you're working through things, how things are affecting you. If you bring this awareness of this body scan and scan yourself in the morning when you first wake up, maybe wake up 5 minutes earlier than your alarm, just lie in bed, do a quick 5-minute body scan uninterrupted, and then maybe do one at the end of the day. I would say do one in the middle of the day, but I find a lot of people don't have time to do some self-care rituals, which we'll get into, which is a very strong coping tool to get through burnout for parents, especially when the stress is heightened and at an all-time high and there's no escaping it. But I do suggest doing a body scan in the beginning of the day just to see what's going on with your body. Not saying this is a good pain, bad pain, horrible pain, judging the pain. It's just, okay, I have pain here. I'm sensing this here. something feels irritated here, and just noticing it. So you're diagnosing yourself. Pretend you're like a doctor, just noticing, evaluating, assessing. This can really help you bring some awareness about your overall body and how it's being affected. And then as your day goes on, things happen, which is why I love meditating first part of the day, because I think it sets myself up to deal with things that are going to be thrown my way. And then as the day goes on, things happen, things progress, things occur. And maybe you're just not dealing with things very well. And maybe you're getting affected because you keep constantly giving, 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 and you're exhausting yourself to that point. So your energy is being exhausted. And then at the end of the day, evaluate yourself. What are you feeling? I guarantee you're feeling way different than you did in the morning, but what's happening in your body? What's your body trying to tell you from everything that's happened in the day? And so a lot of people don't do this, which is why they are confused or unsure of where this is all coming from, what's happening with them. But if you just took a moment to tune into your body, like listen to this organism, listen to this thing, this energy system that we have, it can really tell you a lot about what's going on. So just like you tune into your child if they have an upset stomach or they're not feeling well, it's the same thing that you have to do. You kind of go into this like evaluation mode, this doctor mode. You ask questions, you think about things, you evaluate things, you try to determine if this is like an emergency or something that you can deal with. So that same kind of inquisitive questionnaire type investigative attitude is the same one you need for yourself. So you're able to look at things 360 and really get like a good all-round view of what's going on with you and what's happening. And this does take practice. I'm not saying, okay, tomorrow, let's do this. You're going to be pro at it. Let's go. It takes time. Everything takes time. And being able to bring some patience. Key thing here, patience. Every parent wishes they had more patience. Every person wishes they had more patience. Patience is within you, and it's such an art, something that we have to work on constantly. And sometimes allowing yourself to purposefully be patient with yourself will allow you to be more patient in everything else going around you. So we're so wired nowadays to have everything at our fingertips. Done, got it, info, have it, everything at my fingertips. No questions asked, no need to think it through. But what if it wasn't? What if we had to think it through a little bit more deeply? I wonder what we can learn. I wonder what's in there. If we were to go back to that more primitive state of thinking and allowing things to just take its time to unravel, to be patient, to work at finding the answers rather than getting instant gratification from getting the answers without very little effort. So certain things like that I really feel are necessary when we're using evaluating as a coping skill and a coping tool to have for how we show up as being a parent, and give that same example to our child or children so they're able to also work through the way that they're feeling or seeing things or their perceptions, really understand what's going on. So just a big thing in my book, and it really helps you deal with some of the symptoms that you may feel with burnout.